Hello, I have been asked to do a micro teach for some students, around 15 minutes worth of teaching around portions and balanced diet. So I decided I would record it as a useful little thing just to put up on the internet as well for anyone who would like to know a little bit about it in 15 minutes. So a bit of a whistle stop tour. Um, and there may be some practicals inside this session as well. So there'll be chance for you to pause the session and join in if you wish. This is quite a practical 15-minute micro teach. So portions and balanced diet. And the aim of this session is to understand the difference between servings and portions, as they can be quite different, and it can get very confusing, especially when a lot of the organisations and individuals teaching this may also themselves get it a bit confused and a little bit wrong sometimes. So we'll clear that up and we'll look at the differences between servings and portions. We'll look at the recommendations for a healthy balanced diet as per the government guidelines in the UK. And we're hoping that this information will make you feel more informed and confident on putting together meals with portions and servings in mind so that they are balanced and healthy and you feel a bit more comfortable around doing that. So, serving or portion, what is the difference? Have a little think, maybe even write it down what you think the difference between a serving size and a portion size is. So, what do you think is the difference between a serving size and a portion size? Okay, so a serving size is a food company suggestion of a recommended amount of that particular food to be consumed in one sitting, and it can usually be found on most food labels. They are always in exact measures or amounts. So, for example, on a packet of biscuits, it will probably be, depending on the biscuit, the serving recommended serving suggestion may be one biscuit per serving, which suggests one biscuit is the recommended amount to be consumed. So a portion is the amount of food you choose to eat. So that could be more or less than the serving suggestion. So you could decide, if you were so inclined, to have half a biscuit, which would be less than the recommended serving suggestion. Or you might have a whole packet of biscuits, which again is still a portion that you've decided to have for yourself, um, which is obviously more than the serving suggestion. So we don't often weigh or measure these things out when we have our portions, when we dish up our food for our families. We tend to portion it up by other things rather than the suggested recommended serving size on packets for things. And that's sometimes for very good reason. We don't really want to faff about with measuring jugs and weighing things when we're serving up our meals. And also, if we're making meals from scratch, it can be very difficult to know what the serving suggestion would be when you're using lots of different ingredients. Okay, so now's an opportunity for us to have a little look at how this plays out in our lives sometimes. So just thinking about breakfast now and cornflakes in particular. And I'm just wondering, if you eat cornflakes, this is going to be easy. If you don't eat cornflakes, you could probably apply it to other cereals, but bear in mind they'll have different values on the packets. But just wondering how much cornflakes you'd put in your bowl for breakfast. So this is an exercise. We're going to need a bowl, so a breakfast bowl or any bowl that you use to eat your breakfast out of, a tablespoon, and some cornflakes. So what we're going to do is we're going to, I'm going to put in my amount of cereal, the amount that I would have. And I wouldn't normally kind of weigh it, and I wouldn't use the measuring jugs or spoons or anything. I'd just pour it straight out of the packet. So I would pour into the bowl probably 3/4 of the way up to the top for my amount that I probably have for my cereal in the morning. So what do we think? Do we think that 3/4 of a bowl in my cereal bowl is a kind of reasonable amount? Um, would you eat more? Would you have more cereals? Would you put it right to the top? Would you have less? Would you kind of have half a bowl instead of 3/4 of a bowl? Have a little think about how much you would have. And if you get the opportunity, it'd be good now to pause the video and try this yourself. Get yourself your bowl, pour in the cereal as much as you would have, um, and take a look for yourself and judge, okay, how much of it do I think I've got in this bowl? Because the next bit is to find out how much we are eating in reality to the serving suggestion. So once you've done that, let's have a look at how much the serving suggestion is recommended from from the manufacturers of the cornflakes themselves. So take your tablespoon and get another bowl, a separate bowl, and spoon out of the cornflakes box 3 tablespoons of cornflakes. You can heap these tablespoons, but 3 heaped tablespoons of your cornflakes into the other bowl. And the other bowl needs to be the same size as the bowl you've used for your cereal, your cornflakes. Is there anything you've noticed between the difference in amount in the bowl that we've just put using the 3 tablespoons of cornflakes and the bowl that you poured out for yourself in the other bowl? Chances are you will have noticed that you've put more than the 3 tablespoons quantity in the bowl that you poured out for yourself. And that is not unusual. Nearly 9 out of 10 of us pour more than 30 grams, which is the manufacturer's recommended portion size, which is roughly 3 tablespoons of cornflakes. And it's largely because people don't really know what an appropriate portion size should look like. And also, we don't often check the packets to see what the serving suggestion is. And an appropriate portion really is the serving suggestion. Um, this is because of sort of health requirements. If we eat over the serving suggestion, we could be looking at maybe putting weight on. But it is also to think good to have a little think about the government guidelines, which we'll be coming onto in a minute, and we will look at what the recommendations are there for the types of food that we have in our portions, as we can have more than one type of food in our portion. This is carbohydrate. Cornflakes are a carbohydrate. Um, but of course, our meals aren't always just made up of carbohydrates. But a serving suggestion is based on a recommendation of how much we should be having. And so if we go over that, we could be looking at either unbalancing our diet. However, sometimes might be needed if we need to put weight on. So portions are what we choose to have, but sometimes we don't realize that we're choosing to have more than the serving suggestion. People also don't know this as a fact. It's not something that comes to mind really, but over the years, sizes of plates and bowls have gotten a lot bigger. We don't tend to measure our bowls or plates. We buy them as they are. And there is another sort of psychological thing around this, and that is if we have a large plate or bowl and we have a regular amount of food in that bowl, it feels like less. And studies have been done around this and have proven that if we have smaller plates and bowls, we tend to eat less food and not notice we feel hungry or unsatisfied. We still feel quite satisfied when we have smaller plates and bowls and eat less, as opposed to when we have bigger plates and bowls and have the same amount, psychologically we feel unsatisfied. So nothing to do with nutrients there, all to do with bowl size. and we do tend to just fill them up. Okay, so making sense of these portions and all these portions and serving suggestions. So we can make up our portions out of more than one serving, as I've mentioned, depending on the food group and how much of that food group we've already consumed in the day. And the government gives us these guidelines that just to help us kind of have a starting point really around how many different servings of a particular food group is recommended for the day. And we'll be looking at those in a minute. Um, so for example, a serving of granola would be 132 calories, um, and a portion, so that's 30, they recommend 30 grams, which is 132 calories, and that's what it looks like in the bowl there. The same bowl with 80 grams of fruit and fruit granola is 353 calories, and it doesn't look that much more in the bowl. It does look like a healthier size. I think I'd probably prefer to have that if, you know, if my eyes were choosing between the two, but that is 353 calories. And yeah, so that's a portion, not a recommended serving suggestion. So you can have up to, for example, 6 or 8 servings of carbohydrates, and oats is a carbohydrate. And so having 2 or 3 servings in a meal as your portion is okay, because we have 7 or 8, depending on if you're a male or female, that we can eat in a day. We'll go into this in a little more detail in a minute. What really matters is that we know how many servings we are, you know, recommended to have for a healthy balanced diet, and sticking to that amount of servings over that whole day. So we'll look at that as well. But just to give us a little bit of a heads up, so it is different for men and women. And also it depends on whether you're trying to lose or gain weight, how much you will eat, you will want to choose to put in your portion sizes. If you're a man, usually, sort of generally, men need to eat around 2,500 calories a day, and women around 2,000 calories a day. But if you wanted to lose weight, you'd aim to lose healthy amount of 1 to 2 pounds a week until you reach a healthy weight for your size. Your height. And you can look up a BMI chart as well to give you an idea of what weight for your height is recommended. So you should be able to lose this amount if you eat and drink as well, because that's something else we tend to forget about. Drinks have calories in too. If we drink and eat about 500 to 600 calories less a day than we need. So why are serving and portion sizes important? Well, we can easily, as we've seen, slip up and not know how much we're putting into our bodies, and just eat because we're filling our bowls. We also make maybe some mistakes around what we think we can have more of because we feel like they're healthy, and it is often mistaken. It's often mistaken that smoothies or breakfast cereal bars, for example, are healthy for us. They are marketed as healthy for us, when in fact they are not necessarily. And it always pays to have a look at the packaging. If you're making your own smoothies, it's good to be aware that something happens to fruit when you dilute it, when you blend it, when you smush it up. It frees up the sugars, it destabilizes the sugars, and it becomes highly concentrated sugar. So smoothies, in fact, with fruit in, are like rocket fuel for sugar. They may be natural sugars, but natural sugar it can be just as bad as non-natural sugars. In fact, non-natural sugars are just refined. And what it means by refined is that it's been, its kind of makeup has been changed a bit by being processed, and putting your fruit through a smoothing process is still a process. So yeah, there's sometimes some mixed messages around what is healthy and what is not. And we can get caught up in that and get lost in that, and not know, I'm doing all the right things, I'm eating healthy things, but I'm still not losing weight, or I'm still not feeling very healthy. There are also currently no official guidelines on portion sizes. The government have given their best shot at telling us how many um, servings we should be having, but of course, portion is the amount of food that you would choose to eat. And we're all free thinkers. We can choose to eat more or less if we wish to. So there are no government guidelines or official guidelines around portion sizes. Nutrition content and serving sizes are displayed on most packaging, but sometimes it's listed in grams, and few of us bother weighing our food. It's quite faffy, so that's another reason why sometimes we really don't know what we're putting in our body, and sometimes can eat too much or maybe sometimes too little of something because we don't know what's really in that amount of food. Okay, so tips on how to manage portions. So you could measure out your food with cups and jugs and weighing scales. Some people do, especially if they're on a particular diet. Um, we talked about the size of plates. We could use smaller plates. You could try the My Plate method, which if you Google it, should come up with the instructions, or you could ask me. I have a sheet on using the My Plate method where essentially you can see on the sort of the middle section there's a picture of a plate there that's got vegetables, carbs and protein on it. You've essentially sort of halved the plate and then halved the half, third, made some quarters. Not very good at my maths, obviously. And that then makes up the rough guide of how much to put on your plate. There's a better explanation and instructions for that available if you should wish, just ask and I will send it to you. There's also the use your hand method, and the British Heart Foundation have got a sheet on this, and this graphic is taken from their sheet, their guidelines on how to measure portions out. Essentially, I guess really they are serving suggestions for healthy amounts of certain food groups. So as you can see there, you've got the palm of your hand, meat and beans, slightly further out, so going over the inner knuckles of your hand as the carbohydrate serving suggestion, fish and chicken, the whole of your hand from the tip of the fingers to the heel of your wrist, and then of course you've got your vegetables, your fruit, cheese, your butter on there as well. And this is just a bit more of an explanation of the British Heart Foundation's sheet that is available, and there's that reference there to where you can get it. British Heart Foundation have also provided some really great sheets around what they are calling portion sizes. And this is why it can be so confusing. These are really great, and they show you real food divvied up into the suggested amounts of what we should be eating for a healthy, balanced diet if we're considering a serving. Now, caveat, they have called servings portions here. I'm not really sure why. They are suggestions of healthy amounts rather than they're trying to tell you this is what you will choose to eat. But as we've learned the difference between serving sizes and portion sizes, you'll be able to approach this with a kind of more informed mind. However, they are still fantastic. And they are available on the British Heart Foundation website, which I can also put the link for if you're looking for it too. So let's have a quick look, and some of these might surprise you. So 3 fish fingers is an average serving suggestion for your protein. So these are all proteins on here. 2 eggs is a serving of protein. A palm of chicken, like a palm-sized breast of cooked chicken, is also a serving suggestion of protein. So we've got carbohydrates here too, and this is the one that usually confuses, well, not confuses, but surprises people the most. 9 chips, 9 oven chips. And I certainly know that if I was going to have some chips, I usually cook more than 9. and will eat more than 9 if they're put on my plate. I'm getting a bit better, but a lot of us are the same in thinking that, wow, 9 is 1 serving of carbohydrates. I'd certainly have more than that. But remember, you can have more than 1 serving in a day of a particular food group. So bear that in mind when we come on to the government guidelines next. But this is the suggestions by the British Heart Foundation of how much we should be considering as a serving. Same again for fruit and veg. These are the servings of fruit and veg. As you can see, salad leaves, you could have a whole heap of those as 1 serving. Dairy, the one that usually stands out for most people here is the cheese. 2 kind of finger width and then up to the knuckles in length of cheese. Again, if you like cheese, it's not a lot of cheese. It doesn't feel like a lot of cheese, but that is just 1 serving suggestion. And you can have more than 1 serving of cheese a day, or rather of dairy a day. And again, oils and spreads, these ones can be tricky. We often fry our food in a lot more than 1 teaspoon as well. Small baby spoon, not tablespoon, which is the bigger spoon that we eat with. So 1 teaspoon of oil is the recommended serving suggestion for cooking our food in, although it's very easily overused. That said, there are a certain amount of sort of low fat spreads and things that may low fat oils that may allow a little more. This is a good one to look up as they can vary. There are better oils than others. As a general rule, oils and spreads are quite high in saturated fats and calories, so should be eaten in small amounts if we can help it anyway. But there is quite a lot out there about saturated fats and oils and spreads that could be looked into a little bit further to give you a bit more of an idea with this one. So looking at this image, this is the Eat Well guide produced from Public Health England for the government. And these are, this might look familiar, these are the servings the suggested amounts, proportions of food groups we should be eating in a day. You'll notice down to the bottom left-hand corner there, you've got things like crisps, ketchup, it's an interesting one, biscuits, cakes, chocolate, ice cream, etc. Those kind of foods are not in the main body of this Eat Well guide sort of squashed circle that they've got here, because we do not need those things to live. They are treats, essentially, high in sugar, high in carbohydrates and fats, high in calories, and not needed to live. If we had none of those things in our diet, we would survive quite well. It's these things in our diet that actually cause us some of the things that we see, the problems with heart health, with obesity and diabetes. It's usually these things that are causing it, not always. So the government guidelines are, these are not needed to survive. So they're not within the Eat Well guide main body, but they're there to suggest, okay, that we know people eat them, but if you can eat them less often and smaller amounts, then that is helpful. Looking at this, it's unsurprising that the biggest part of this, although I don't think this is actually in proportion, but the biggest part of this is the green section, the fruit and vegetables, and we can eat 5 portions of fruit and veg. And again, portion is left up to you what that might mean. So that's why we have to think about our serving suggestions, because it depends on the fruit or veg. Fruit is higher in sugar, veg is lower in sugar content, so potentially you might have a larger portion of vegetable than you would fruit, but you can have 5 of them a day. Then you've got your potatoes, breads, rice, pasta, the carbohydrates section, the yellow section on the right hand side here. yeah, breads, potatoes, all those kinds of things, all that stuff that the feel-good foods, they are carbohydrates. And the reason why these are such problematic little things is because these are just one step up from um, sugars. They contain complex sugars, so that's why they are usually the sort of things that we try to reduce down if we are um, looking to lose weight. So in this area, we are allowed eight, well, 8 or 7. So this is another thing to consider. So five fruit or veg a day is for everyone. But when we come into the other areas, we're looking at men and women differences. So for men, 8 servings of carbohydrates are recommended a day. For women, it's 7. Looking at the protein section, the little pink section there, men is 3 servings a day, women is 2. And that's things like beans, pulses, fish, eggs, meat, other proteins. And then our dairy section, or alternatives if you're vegan, so 3 servings a day of the dairy or alternatives. Here's our fat and our spreads and our oils. 1 to 2 servings. So remember, our serving suggestion of oil was a teaspoon. So we can have 1 to 2 of those a day. So if we're making a fry up, we can put 2 teaspoons in rather than just the 1, but that would be our recommended amount for the day. And then we've got hydration in here, as it's really important to drink lots of water, 6 to 8 glasses of water, or low-fat milk or sugar-free drinks, although that is a debatable area, as aspartame has been found to be not so good for you. But you can also include tea and coffee in that drinks allowance. But when we're talking about fruit juice, if you remember what happens to fruit when we smush it up, when we crush it, juice it, squeeze it, blend it, it becomes highly concentrated sugar. So fruit juice and smoothies, we are talking about 150 ml a day, and that is a lot smaller amount than you'd imagine. And there's our junk food. There's that section there about this not being so healthy for us, so that's out on its own. And it's suggested that if we're going to have this sort of junk food, snacking, have a look on the packet and have the recommended amount, the serving suggestion only, and it's, or usually around 120 calories per snack. And snacks should be, if possible, limited to 2 or 3 a day. So making a meal with servings in mind. Ham and cheese salad with chips. This is what I've chosen for my dinner. And I've got some food groups here, and I'd just like you to pause for a second and consider what we've got here. What have we got in food groups here? So thinking about what we were just looking at in our Eat Well guide, what food groups are covered in these 1, 2, 3, 4 different things in my meal? Have a little think and maybe write down which 4 food groups these guys fit into. Yeah, okay, so we've got our protein, we've got our dairy, veg, and our carbohydrates. And as you can see, I have put 2 lots of cheese and 2 lots of oven chips from the recommended serving suggestion from the British Heart Foundation on here, because I quite like cheese and I also quite like chips. And my meal doesn't feel very big if I've only got 9 chips. Yes, I've got a lot of salad on there, and I've got 5 slices of ham, which is quite a lot of ham. So I could probably reduce that down, maybe even. But I would quite like more than the recommended serving suggestion of cheese, and I'd like a little bit more chips. So I've put twice the amount on here. So let's have a little think about this. I am a woman, I'm maintaining my weight, I don't want to lose weight. And if we think about our recommendations of how much I can have in each of these food groups, we've got ham. Have a little think about what how many amounts of servings I have in this meal of ham in the protein serving suggestion. So yeah, it's one of my 2 servings of protein a day. If I have another meal, maybe this is my lunch, I have dinner and I want to have some more protein. So for example, a chicken breast at dinner, I still have a serving left. So it is only one of my 2 servings of protein allocated for me in a day, or recommended for me in a day. So what about cheese? Yeah, so because I've chosen to have 2 of the serving suggestion here, that is 2 of my 3 servings of dairy a day. So again, I could have something else. I might even have a yogurt maybe for dessert. That might be the serving suggestion might be a a whole pot of small yogurt. Um, so that would be my full 3 servings of dairy. But at the moment in this meal, it's only 2 servings of my 3 a day for dairy. What about salad? This one should be easy because it's the one that everybody goes on about. How many a day of salad do we, well, I say salad, of this food group? 5 a day, one of my 5 a day. 80 grams of salad leaves is the serving suggestion. So it's only one of my 5 a day for fruit and veg. What about chips? What category did we say they came under? They came under carbohydrates. How many carbohydrates can we have in a day? For a woman, it's 7. And these are 2 because I've chosen 2 of the serving suggestion, 2 amounts of the serving suggestion. So 2 of my 7 carbohydrates. That leaves me a good few, well, 5 more serving suggestions of carbohydrates I can have in the rest of the day. So this is what my meal would be. And it's made up of several different food groups with several different amounts of serving suggestions. And overall, this is a portion that I would give myself. And if you remember, portion sizes can be made up of more than 1 serving, depending on the food group and how much of that group we have already consumed that day. You, for example, can have 7 or 8 servings, depending on whether you're a man or a woman, of carbohydrates. So this is why I've got 2 lots of my oven chips there. And then what really matters is we just kind of bear in mind the overall amounts that we can have. So my 7 servings of overall for carbohydrates is barely dented by my 2 lots of chips there. So I just need to bear in mind that I can have 7 in a day, reminding myself that I've only got 5 left once I've had this meal. Okay, so I'd like to ask you guys if you have any questions to leave them below, and I will see if I can answer them. What would be really cool is also like if you could put one thing that you've learned that's really stood out for you in today's session and why. And if you're feeling super chatty, maybe give me some feedback around these 4 particular questions. So do you feel that you understand the difference between portions and servings now? Do you feel that you have the basic information you need around the recommendations that the government has put out around a healthy, balanced diet? Do you feel more informed and confident about putting a meal together that's made up of a portion size that is healthy and balanced? And what, if anything, will you go away and find out more about after this session? Thanks for listening.